Right, we've got the thick polish off now, so I'm just actually washing it over with some thinners. In this case it's the thinners for the actual lacquer that I will be using at a later stage. It is important to make sure that you get every shred, scrap of old lacquer off before you start anything. It must be clean. The preparation stage is always the most important. Bit of elbow grease, but it pays off in the end, and it makes the difference between a good job and a bad one. As you can see, there was a bit of residue left in it. That's all gone now. There's nearly one side done. But what we've got to do, of course, is to turn it over and do the other side, which is actually worse than the other side. But we'll start on that next. We'll come back to you later. Hello, back again. Welcome to Newby House. As you see, we've managed to get all the old varnish and paint off, and we've managed to keep the numbers on the boss, as I've been told it's called, not the hub. Now we're going to start sandpapering it. I'm going to do it by hand because obviously there's a lot of curvatures on this, which we don't want to lose or have any runways, as it were. A little bit more work on that. I've just put a very light sandpaper over that, and as you see, it's had a lot of damage over the years to the brass, which we'll preserve because we want to keep the antique look of it. I'm going to use some 120, which is actually a little bit worn, so it's not going to be too rough to start with. And then I'm going to graduate on and finish it off with some 150 garnet paper. The parts that need filling, I'll fill those in after it's been sandpapered, and then I'll sandpaper it level. But we'll come back to that. Hello again, welcome back to Newby House. Right, the stage we're at now, I've sanded it down using, I started off with, as I said before, P120, hand sanded it, went on to 240, and finally, to finish it off, we've used 150, that's garnet paper. And while sanding it, I've also used the 150 only on the brasswork. It's important that the brasswork, with the brasswork, you don't take all this distressing out, because it is an antique and it's got to look as though it's being used. And these are all the injuries it's picked up over the years. Obviously, any damage, any bad damage, we have to attend to, namely this part on the back edge that we're going to fill. I'm going to use a body filler that you would normally use on a car, and I'm just going to put a little bit of colour with it just to take the grey off. So we'll just mix that up. It doesn't have to be the same as the finished colour of the piece, as long as we've got some background to work on, but we'll talk about that later. There we have a bit of a background colour. These are just earth colours. Used to use lead colours, but stopped us using those now for obvious reasons. Right, and obviously you've got to overfill it. It can take 2 or even 3 applications. does tend to have a bit of a mind of its own way it's going. Gravity takes over, I'm afraid. That's why you're going to have to let that dry, sand it down, and then we'll give it another application. Also, we need to look for other damage that we think isn't really necessary to leave on. We've got quite a bad gouge here, so we'll fill that in. Don't be frightened to go over, you're going to sandpaper it all off again. Here, quite an interesting part, this is where it's been badly damaged, and a carpenter has put a new piece of wood in there. You see there's been another more damage over here in its lifetime where it's been split away, but they've managed to save that one because that's the original piece. We don't want little bits like that. We'll fill that as well. Another interesting thing I've done is, just get rid of that, is to, there again, we don't want it to look brand new. You see all these little tiny screws, they're all brass. So another chunk here you're going to have to fill. There again, they don't want to look brand new, but they don't want to look as though they've been left either, looking dirty and dishevelled. So I've actually unscrewed each one of those and just finally sandpapered the tops off, still making them look their age, but making them noticeable. I'll just fill that package in. And then if you join me next time when we sand it off.